It's so interesting. Great morning, everybody. Welcome back to Chai Together. I am your host and founder, Pratibha Day. Today, you are tuning in for your cup of courage, hope, and imagination. So on this platform, we use courage to showcase our stories. We use hope to overcome, and we use imagination to resonate and understand with the stories that are being shared. So with that being said, I'd like to welcome Mr. Michael Bryan. How do you feel?
I'm doing really well, Chai. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, awesome. So where are you calling in from?
I'm based in the UK and I'm in a town called Widnes, which is very close to Liverpool.
I had no idea this whole time. I really thought you were from America. Whenever I talk to you, just like an assumption, I was like, oh, you wouldn't know, right? Unless like someone spoke with you.
Well, no, that's it. And, we both speak English, so it's very hard
Yeah.
to really, pinpoint it.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad you're here. I remember I reached out to you last year and I was like, yeah, sure, you can show your book. And then like we lost touch and then I was like, hey, do you want to come on? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, I found the show when I was looking into shows that
Mm.
I guess resonated with the book initially, but then I thought she seems pretty cool. Maybe we'll just chat instead. It doesn't have to be like a
Aw.
serious thing. So yeah, I just felt sort of like we would get on, and that was enough for me to reach out again about being a guest.
Thank you for that. That's really nice. All right, I'm going to let the viewers know about you. May I?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, Mr. Michael Bryan is a best-selling author, speaker, philanthropist, podcaster, and has been called an inspirational icon. He hasn't let having cystic fibrosis and diabetes or being an introvert hold him back from achieving his dreams. After realizing being of service gave him a sense of meaning and purpose, Michael's been on TV, stage, and hosts the award-winning self-improvement podcast called The Ask Mike Show, interviewing celebrities across multiple industries, inspiring and changing the world one person at a time. And you can join Michael's group on Facebook. The link is above, and you can find him at the Michael Bryan on all platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You
Sounds great. I'd love to meet him.
like that? So, wait, tell us about your Facebook group. Tell us the name of the community. Hmm.
Well, from the last time that we spoke, the show's actually had a bit of a rebrand. So
Hmm.
once I'd got used to asking loads of questions and answering questions, I thought, okay, I need to get rid of the whole Ask Mike thing because it's getting a bit samey for a long time now. So I
Oh,
just thought, right, I just change it, rebrand it to the Michael Bryan Show,
awesome.
and that's the name of the group. So it's for people that are fans of the show,
Mm,
fans of myself who just want to listen to the show, ask questions, get involved.
mm.
I run the odd like challenge in there and just ask questions of people, see what they think
Oh,
about the
wow.
show, what would they want changing. So it adds a real community element, similar to yourself, really,
Yeah.
around the shows that we have.
Are you in our Try Together community group?
I think I I I checked it out a
I'll
while
send you the link
ago.
again. I have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
check
I'd love
myself.
to be a member. Yeah.
Yeah, because I like that. I have not done I mean, I wouldn't say I've done a challenge where I've announced like, oh, here's a challenge, but I do engage, questions and stuff. So what is
Yeah.
your challenge you're doing now? Are you doing one now?
There's one at the end of this month that's starting that's
Mhm.
about productivity. So, having
Oh,
to
wow.
manage my conditions and health and business and podcasts and somehow plan for the future despite
Yeah.
just going day to day. Um, a lot of people think that's quite a lot. I don't necessarily have a family or anything, but I still
Yeah.
have a lot of things to juggle.
Me either.
They, so yeah, so it was just
Yeah.
something that we thought, what, I'd love to know how he manages it all. So
Wow.
that was the main reason for doing it.
I like that. I like that. And I like that you brought up that you don't have a family, but you still have, many things on your plate because I don't have kids and, I'm here with my parents and they're elderly, but it's really more of a caregiver for them before because I started this. I don't know if you've read, but I started this inspired by my mom. So my mom was diagnosed with schizophrenia and another
Wow.
diagnosis. And I was inspired to start talking about it last year. And then I would make solo videos. And then I decided to have, if you know of Kawan Glover, do you know of Kawan?
I haven't,
He,
no.
really? Oh, he was really popular in the podcast group because he's a
Mm,
stroke and brain surgery survivor. And he was,
right.
yeah. And so he was my first guest. And I started having a lot of people on, like you, and, doing this but it started off with just me, just me talking
Yeah.
about my mom and what that experience is like. So for you, you know, like, how did you gain the confidence? I'm going to ask you more about your journey, but like, how did you gain the confidence to, like, hey, I have these things going on medically, but it doesn't stop me from showing up in the world and not letting people judge me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I don't let them judge me. Every now, I mean,
Oh, hmm,
unfortunately, I am human. So
yeah.
every now and again, it does, peck me a little bit.
Hmm,
But that was more earlier in the journey when,
mm,
again, I kind of realized that I didn't really have a whole lot to give initially. That's one of the reasons why I've gone from interviewing guests to doing more of my own thing, and then bringing guests back into the mix a lot more,
mm,
because I realized that I don't know enough yet. I don't feel like I have a whole lot to bring to the table. So rather than try to force it, rather than try and, because a lot of people put themselves in situations that they can actually prevent if they actually put some more thought behind it. So I didn't want to put myself in a situation whereby I'd have to justify something or explain myself or any number of things, right? So I thought I don't
hmm.
want to put myself in that place. I don't want to put myself in that situation. So I share my story in a way that I don't share it unless there's a lesson behind it.
Oh,
Because
wow.
if I'm in the moment right now, it's
Mhm.
tough. So I don't know the lesson yet. I don't know the takeaway yet. I don't know how I can help someone that's going through something that I'm also going through. Like, it has to
Yeah.
be related to the past, right?
Right.
So that started to happen for me, but I didn't share all of it. I didn't share everything because no one wants to know. Like, I learned that brushing my teeth with my non-dominant hand made me better at tennis. That doesn't matter,
Mm,
right? It doesn't affect anybody. So I sort of took my story and ran it through a filter of, does it help the people that are actually paying attention?
hmm.
Does it help the people that are actually listening, watching, consuming what it is I have to say? Because if they're not bothered, and they're not bothered, that's fine. But if they are, I want to make sure that I do right by them, as opposed to like just screaming about anything and everything and praying that it's worth it. But then as things moved on and more people were saying, I need to read everything in one place. Where can you put it in one place? Because social media, I don't see everything that you do. I don't see all of the podcasts or all of the books, or because of the algorithms and just the way social media works,
Hmm.
no one sees everything.
Yeah.
I thought, right, I need a place, I need something that has everything in there, all of my story in there, all of the lessons in there.
Hmm.
And then I thought, well, what topic would it be about? What's the outcome? What's the reason why people would read the book? And I'm quite high on the introvert spectrum, definitely an
Mm.
introvert, like 98% introvert. So I was like, right, what if there's a fellow introvert out there that wants to put themselves out there more? They want to be
Wow.
more visible. They want to show up in a similar way to I did.
Mm.
That's what I would want the book to be about, because that I had to live it and then put a title to it, which felt very weird because you don't put a title on a book after you've written it. You kind of figure out what you want to write about and then you put the title to it. But mine was the other way around because it was about my life essentially, what I'd gone through. I then had to think of something that encompassed all of that, and then that became the title.
It's really impressive to hear you talk. Like, this kind of understanding. Did you always have this kind of understanding? Like, you're very considerate and not a sob story, but really like of overcoming. What can I do with what I have now? That's what I hear from you.
I think the best with what you have is why I'm somewhat of an optimist, given what's happened to the world and everything else. And I spent a lot of lockdowns living on my own,
Yeah.
and I somehow, I've not lost my mind yet. I may have, but I haven't gone completely insane yet, Chai. So
Mm-hmm.
I've managed to handle it better than some people that I know, and I've had to be very, very empathetic, I guess, to how other people deal with things. And I think just it's such a better life to not dwell on things as best you
Mm-hmm.
can.
I really
It's
like that.
tough and all that. It's better just to not dwell, and it's better just to, like, look, I'm sorry if it comes across as a bit disconnecting, a bit blunt, but I can't do anything else if I'm too busy worried about this thing over here. It affects everything. It affects how your brain works. It affects how happy you are. It affects your ability to problem solve and think into the future. And the the benefits outweigh the negatives if you just try not to dwell as long as possible.
Wow. I could definitely see you as a coach. So how long have you been coaching?
Well, I've been coaching on and off since I was about 15.
Wow.
Because I started off life
What?
as a tennis coach. Started off as a tennis coach, so
Wow.
I was volunteering, to get your hours. But when you're 15, you can't really get paid for it yet. So I did the voluntary hours. I worked at a tennis club. Then they said, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if you actually got qualified?" Someone pointed out to me that they
Mm-hmm.
thought I would make. I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Somebody else pointed out to me that you seem to be quite good at this tennis thing, and
Mm,
every now and again you help other people to sort of keep pushing forwards. How do you feel about being a coach?
mm,
And that sort of spiraled into, like, tennis became personal training, became online mindset coaching once I realized that the mindset was why I got to where I was. it
mm-hmm.
it wasn't the health and fitness, it wasn't the sport, it was the mindset, it was the frame of mind that I had, versus, like, oh well, I'm fit and healthy. So no, there's
Mm,
something underneath that, because if you work out and you eat not terribly, you stay slim and you get fitter over time.
mm,
It's not very complicated. But why did I do all those things? It was because I am sort of driven by being the best that I can be and contributing in the best way. So when I was a tennis coach, that felt pretty good for my age. I was
mm.
15, 16, and I'm a
So
tennis
young.
coach,
Yeah. Wow.
volunteering as a tennis coach. And then when I was at university, I got asked, like, well, I put my foot through the door essentially, but then
Mm,
I started to work at a tennis club, and they said, we'll give you your hours and we'll let you sort of coach at our center
mm.
because you've got your degree, or you're doing your degree in coaching. So
Wow.
that opened the door for me to start tennis coaching voluntarily, but they let me do it on my own because I was doing my degree. So it sort of opened the door into doing that, which then became full time, became self employed,
Wow.
and then I thought, oh, the tennis center has a gym. That's pretty cool. So I goes upstairs and I realized that, like, people are changing lives up here while I'm hitting tennis balls. What is this thing? And then I realized that health and fitness is above tennis, if you understand what I mean. Like, tennis is sort of, it's good, right? I'm not knocking tennis coach, and I still do it
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. Tennis is like here, but health and fitness feels like it's a bigger change. It feels like
Mm-hmm.
it's a bigger contribution, right? And I thought, yes, because there was talk of me doing both tennis and fitness, but we could never quite figure it out. I would have loved to do both because that would have upped it again. I could do both. It's amazing. Then I found mindset and, like, transformational coaching and what that can do for people. And I
Wow.
thought that feels bigger again. Like, is there a ceiling to this? Is there, like, a best possible thing that I can do with my time? And I just kept going. I just kept going. I thought, what's bigger? What's better? What's a bigger contribution? What's a bigger legacy or a bigger mark that I can make? And I just kept going since I was like 15 or 16. I don't plan on stopping. So as things grow and as things progress, I'm always looking for the next big thing for me.
You know what? I'm going to rewrite your bio that you started at age 15. I've never heard of someone that I know in my circle. I know hundreds of people, been in multiple programs. I've never met someone who started at such a young age. Is that very normal in the UK for, a young child to do that kind of
Uh,
work?
it's strange because when I entered the online world, right,
Yeah.
my perspective was very different from the average
Mm-hmm.
because I then got immersed into those that can't do teach, and you shouldn't be a coach unless you've achieved something.
Wow.
It
Yeah.
was all very, I guess, downgrading on people that just want to be a coach. They just want to
Hmm.
help people. We don't care about what we've achieved. We're not bothered. We want to help other people do it. That's what we're passionate about. We're not experts in anything. We understand people better than we understand anything else. We understand people, problems, and potential solutions. We don't, I'm not bothered about being a millionaire. I'd
Yeah.
rather help somebody else be a millionaire. I'd rather
Wow.
learn the principles and apply it through the filter of their
Mhm.
life so that they can get results for them. Not like, oh, read this book and it'll change your life.
Yeah.
No, not really. It won't. So it got a bit, to tell you the truth, it became a bit disheartening because I didn't know any other gear, didn't know
Wow.
anything else. So when I was like 18 to 20, I embarked on this online world because Snapchat came out. Everything was about like AR and VR stuff, because you can have like stickers and or like filters, and
Mhm.
there was talk of having like, because I was a personal trainer, having the personal trainer in the room virtually training you. And I thought,
Wow.
I'm going to be out of business if I keep doing this thing. I need to change. I need to get online. I need this technology thing in my life. Otherwise, I'm out
Mhm.
of business in the next 10 years. And that's what made me look into Snapchat and Facebook and filters and technology and where everything's going. And I just thought, I am going to be out of business very, very soon if I don't take advantage of this.
Wow.
And that really kick-started the online side of what I do, was online health
Mhm.
coaching, online mindset coaching, just to take the personal training and move it online because I would like to stay in business.
Yeah.
And it sort of hit me that the future's coming quicker than I thought it would, and I've got to stay ahead of it. So that was why I started online. That was what kicked me into gear to start everything that you see now.
Wow. The people who are telling you, you don't have experience, what are you doing coaching at that age? But that is your story. So now you can tell people, hey, I've been doing this since I was 15, 16, like, very driven. That tells your story right there. I personally would want someone who started at that age and then someone who started later. So that actually benefited you, even if not at the time. What are your thoughts?
I think now I'm in a better position, similar to what I said before, is I'm kind of past that now.
Yeah.
So I can look back and go, yeah, the people that didn't want tennis lessons from me because I was 18, they'd go to the 30 or 40-year-old because they thought age meant experience, even though it
Yeah.
doesn't. Um, it
It
was
does
like,
not.
yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference, really. And you'll find a lot of people can help growing businesses, but not startups, because what works for a growing business doesn't work for a startup. A startup on a shoestring budget cannot afford 10 grand a month on ads. They just can't.
No.
There's someone that goes, oh yeah, I just want to scale. Okay, well, if you've got a budget for advertising, yeah, I've got 10 grand a month. Great, do that. It's not rocket science when you're already good at something. You just do more of what works and get rid of what doesn't and keep experimenting with the rest. Not that difficult. It's actually
Wow.
easier to work with someone in that position than someone that really has no idea what to do with their life. And that was the realization to me that just because you can do it for yourself doesn't mean you can help other people do it.
I
Doesn't
agree with
mean that you've got anything really to show for it. Because
I like
Nine
that.
times out of 10, you hired a coach. 9 times out of 10, they hired a coach. So why can't, you know, you didn't do it then, did you? If you hired a coach, you didn't really do it yourself then. So what qualifies you to help others if you can't technically? If you get under the weeds of it all, you've got staff, you've had coaches, you're not actually doing it. So how can
Yeah.
you help other people do it?
I
So
get that. Yeah.
so in some ways they've got all of the pride and some of the ego, I guess, wrapped up in what they've achieved,
Mm.
but that doesn't qualify them to help others if they've never actually been hands on with like 80% of it.
Wow. I'm just like I just like everything you're saying because I agree with that.
It's
So
it's it's very complicated though, because that
mhm.
means no one's actually qualified to tell people what to do with their
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
And unfortunately, I would agree with that. I can guide, I can help, I can inspire, I
Mhm,
can say, look, this is what worked for me. Do you want to try it and see if it works for you? Great. But ultimately, you've got to step in and decide for yourself
mhm,
whether the results are what you want, whether the work you're putting in is the right amount in the right way. Because the process is just as important. If you hate it, and I mean hate it, doesn't matter whether it works to a certain extent because you hate it.
mhm.
So it's
Yeah,
a
I agree.
very
Yeah.
fine line. It's a very, very, very fine line between who can actually help you and who can't. Because people that have got their own ideas and their own principles and their own ways of doing things,
Mhm,
they're not going to be as open minded to things that didn't work for them but might work for you.
mm. So do you feel like, so do you label yourself as what kind of coach you are? Or like what do you go by now?
I don't necessarily do a lot of coaching anymore.
Yeah.
I do bits and pieces. I've got a supporter platform for those that support my show, and I do keep people accountable. And we do meetups sometimes. It's really cool because the,
Yeah.
the kind of, oh, I get to meet Mike and this is amazing, and it's cool because I can step in sometimes and say, look, is this actually working, or do you want to do something about it? And
Mm,
that's kind of what it is. It's more of a membership system
mhm,
than having constant coaching calls with people. And the reason being is I I don't necessarily agree with the online coaching space, as you can probably tell.
mhm.
Si- Similar to the self-help space, like I just think we're at a point where we need to evolve coaching. We need to evolve a lot of industries to match the way the world's going.
Mhm.
And I stepped away from sort of pure coaching by itself a couple of years ago for that reason. I thought I'm being thrown into this box with all of the other coaches, and most of us don't really know how to help people.
Wow. So how many years have you been in the basically you're gonna age yourself. How old are you?
I'm 30.
Wow. You're only 30. So you
Yeah.
started you never know. So yeah, because I'm 28. That's really interesting. So you being like just 30, do you feel like you're barely scratching the surface and you started really young?
Well, I've written 2 books in a couple of years. There was like
Yeah.
6 or 8 months between each other, and it's becoming apparent that if a lot of people peak in their 40s and 50s, which seems
Hmm.
to be a bit of a common theme right now, like
Hmm.
40s to 50s is like, okay, you're in your stride now. You know, a lot of people don't break onto the scene until they're 40.
Hmm.
Um, I've got another 10 years yet
Wow.
before I, in air quotes, can step into the spotlight.
Wow.
Um, and I'm actually strangely looking forward to that. As
Wow.
much as it's probably going to be scary, it's like I've got 10 years of more. It's not going to be less because I just
Mm,
add to it. So 10 more years until
Mm-hmm.
I can, like, okay, right, I'm probably old enough to, like, just say to hell with everybody and say whatever the hell I want. And I'm almost there now. So imagine me in 10 years' time, right?
Mm.
It's a little weird because I've spent half my life doing this stuff.
Yes.
That's the weird bit. I did start young. I did start coaching before I actually did anything myself.
Mm.
And eventually you get better at coaching than actually doing it for yourself. Is that a bad thing? I don't think it is. Because
Mm.
in a world where, like, big businesses have too many staff, the owner's got no hands on what's actually happening. Why would you want to be mentored by somebody that has other people do it for them? What's their advice going to be? Get someone to do it for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So
actually.
well, yeah. So it
I've had that
doesn't.
experience. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's strange.
Mm-hmm.
It is. We value things that we shouldn't, and we don't value things that we should.
Wow.
And the thing that I worry about is the world's not going to change quickly enough. So we're going to keep valuing the same things. We're going to keep putting certain things on a pedestal when they really shouldn't be. But
Mm.
all that is that going to change? Is that a human problem or is that an industry problem? I think it's probably a bit of both. But are we going to change it? I don't know. I've started to resign myself to the fact that I'm probably not going to change the entire planet and
Mm.
rearrange how we think. I've had to be okay with that because ultimately this is life. These are the cards that you're dealt, and this is just the way it is. I just think that that needs to happen before people start understanding that all you've got to do is trust that what you think
Wow.
is right.
That's really deep.
Everything else is bells and whistles.
Wow, that's really deep. That understanding at 30 is very impressive. Once again, I'm very impressed. I don't if you in all of my shows, all my videos I did for the year, I don't remember telling anyone, "Hey, I'm very impressed with what you're saying." Hi Rhonda. Thanks for tuning in. No, I'm being serious, especially being 30 and having that thinking, starting young. It's different. It is different. And the statement that I was telling you that I shared with my friend was regarding that. I was saying, like, there's always something happening in the world. Like, I'm realizing that more. It's always something like, and I'm like, we are the balance. Like, so I guess as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that they don't tell us this in school and things like that, that how real world is, and as an adult.
Yeah.
And just, when these bad things are happening and all this stuff, and I'm like, the fact that our world is like this, it's like, why is our world like this? You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be like this,
Yeah.
right? It causes a lot of hardship, a lot of mental health concerns, just a lot of trauma, a lot of everything. And that's really the statement I was making is, the fact that, wow, like, it's kind of like a joke in a way, if you know what I'm saying. Like, you wake up every day, something, it's like, that's not peaceful. Like, why is that existing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you mentioned, like, a lot of it has to do with education. You are probably right. We're teaching things that don't matter, so why would we value things that do? We're not being taught the right. We're kind of trained to value things that don't matter because we're being taught that they do matter when they don't matter when we enter the real
Mhm.
world. So
Yeah,
if
like,
your entire
mm,
system's built on things that don't matter, you then start to hold on to it because that's all you know. And then you're forced
mm.
into this system of constantly valuing things that don't really matter.
Yeah, and then you grow up and it's like we're taught to, like, no one talked about entrepreneurship. You know what I mean? I'm similar age as you, and it's like,
Yeah.
growing up, it's like, honestly, I don't even remember what we did in school all the 12 years. Like, honestly, I couldn't even tell you facts and history or things like that. And it's like, but if we learn self-development and things like this, I would always remember it. Like, you started at a young age. You know what I mean? Like, this is the stuff that, like, gets, embedded inside of you, like, subconsciously. So I want to ask you, like, regarding your medical diagnosis. So was that when you were young regarding cystic fibrosis? And can you tell us what that is as well?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis when I was about 2 months old. So they do like a
Oh, wow.
full workup on you as a baby, don't they? When you're born, they do sort of everything to see that you're okay, make sure that you're
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
And that was when I was diagnosed. So from a very early age, I had to, well, most of it was my parents. I'm not gonna lie. Initially, they become mum and dad, right? And they look after, they do everything that they need to do. But as I got older, like I had to grow up quite quickly. Like he's like, right, this is your turn now. You've got to do all this yourself.
Wow.
And that again, it was gradual. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm a definitely the result of my parents giving me the safety to do what it is that I do.
Mm.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be this person. Otherwise, I'd be in a
Yeah.
constant state of fear, like a lot of other people are. So I'm very, very grateful to them for that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that was about 2 months old, and the condition affects my lungs and my digestive system mostly, but it's throughout the body, so it's all over. Um,
Wow.
that's kind of my start really is like I've just got to get by every single day. Very little forward planning is what I would say. It was get through the next day, get through the next day, get through the next day. That was kind of how I spent a lot of my childhood, really. And if it wasn't homework, it was schoolwork, and if it wasn't that, it was treatments and medications, and I go back to bed and do it all over again.
So how are you now? Like, what is like, is this like life threatening? Like you say, take it day by day, you just don't know. Like, how is that?
It's the way I would describe it. It's life threatening if I do nothing about it.
Wow.
So if I don't do my treatments, I don't exercise, I don't do any of that stuff, then yes, it can go downhill quite quickly. If I do, so I exercise 5 times a week in the gym. Sometimes I have like an active day of a weekend where I like play sports or I go for a walk or wherever the case is. I
Mhm.
do like treatments twice a day. There's actually a recently sort of experimental drug that I'm trying. It's a form of gene therapy actually, so it alters how my body operates,
Wow.
and that's had a massive effect. I feel very, very good,
That's
even compared to
fascinating.
even before I was taking it. I'm better than what I was just 2 or 3 years ago. I feel better already. So it's changing all the time. The treatments are growing all the time. New updates happening all the time, but there's no cure yet, so it's not going to go away.
Wow. This is a big deal, as in the work you do while having this challenge. Like, I think it's fantastic, like in a positive sense, because some people can take that and complain and sit around, but you're like, I'm still going to live life like how, I want to live life. And it's basically like if you were to go today, like people will remember you for your books and then the work that you're doing. But if you were complaining and you go today, it's like, oh, well, you didn't do anything anyway. Like, you know what I mean? Just to be blunt, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, everything changed again when I was diagnosed with diabetes as well. So when I was like in my
wow,
early 20s, it was diabetes was the next thing.
wow,
That's actually very common for people with CF when they're in their 20s because the condition gets worse over time.
mm,
It's a degenerative thing. So when you hit in your 20s, that's when
mm,
you're like peak for being diabetic. And I'm also diabetic. That's just the way it is. So that shifts me even more because I did the stupid thing, Chai. Right, you'll probably want to throw a shoe at me or something through the screen, but
mm,
I did the stupid thing of looking up mortality rates, which is a dangerous thing to do, very dangerous thing to do. But that did kick me into okay, I have to do something with this. This can't be pointless. Can't be. I won't be happy if my life is pointless. There's no point.
wow,
So that really sort of shifted me more than I thought it would. And really convinced me that it's this or nothing. Like I would rather be doing this than pretty much anything else.
wow. And so this is what you do full time,
Yeah,
your
I don't do
show.
anything else aside from like coaching and podcasting and speaking and writing
Wow.
books. And I'm like 10 years before I should probably be doing this stuff
Mm-hmm.
because because I am. I'd rather do it now than wait. So that kind of,
Wow.
I feel slightly impatient sometimes, but it's like, well, I don't know how long I've got, so I've got
That's
to
true.
keep writing the books. I've got to keep speaking. I've got to keep being on shows like
Hmm.
this. I've got to do what I can. I am quite stubborn sometimes. I am quite impatient, and it's driven by like, what else would I be doing?
It's lit a fire under you. That's what I want to say. And only if other people, let's say, like we don't all have these, different diagnoses. Not everyone has medical concerns, but when you find out you do, something shifts and you want to suddenly change your life around and diet, eat healthy, but you should have been doing all that prior to that. You know what I mean? Then you wouldn't have been in that situation most like sometimes. But I'm saying you have that fire lit under you like purposefully. So I think that's
Yeah, it's a bit weird because someone asked me a couple of months ago, and they said, "Would you be the same person without the conditions?" And the answer is no. I just flat out just said no, because
no.
the amount of people that don't do anything unless they have something bad happen to them,
Hmm.
I'd be in that boat, definitely,
Yeah.
1000%. Well, I
Yeah.
don't like working out.
Yeah.
No, I don't like it. I've been doing it for
Mhm.
like 16 years. Why would I enjoy it?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I tend to think when it comes to that. I don't
Yeah.
think I would be the same person without them. I'm grateful
Yeah.
to them to a certain extent because hey, I'm changing lives almost week by week, and it gives me a sense of I'm on the right track. Whereas
Woo.
without the conditions, I'd probably just like jump into a job at 16 and
Right.
stick at that, and then I'd blink and I'm 50, and then that's it.
And you die. Right. If you
So
make
I
it, we don't even know if we'll make it. You know what I mean? Statistically.
oh, of course, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like not everyone we know will make it till old age. Some people are like, oh, retirement. It's like, live for now. Who the hell, like, you know what I mean? Like, who knows at this point if we'll even get Social Security? Those kind of things like that is so outdated, for our generation.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, so how do you feel being called an inspirational icon? Like, how does that feel?
Uh, it's weird because I was also interviewed on one of the podcasts that affiliated with entrepreneur.com. That was quite a
Mhm,
big the sort of I think they're on their platform as well. I can't use the logo, by the way.
mhm,
Full disclaimer, I can't use the entrepreneur logo, which did kick me at the time. But when they put the show out, the title was Inspirational Icon and Hero.
mm,
And I was like, that definitely presses a different button in my brain. So it feels very weird.
mm.
But then the only possible way I can reconcile any of it is it's not up to me to decide.
Wow, that's
That
very
was
smart.
literally the only thing that stopped me from freaking out and losing sleep over it. And I said to my friend, I said, I've got to email them and ask them to change the name. He went, no, don't ask them to change the title. They decided
Mm,
that was the title. They decided that's what you were, according to them, right? Live with it.
wow.
Deal with it. You'll figure it out. It's not up to you. And I thought, it's not up to me.
Wow.
So if I'm called, I'm a bit of a goof sometimes, right? So it's like, oh, he's a bit of a funny guy. Call me that if you want. That's fine. I'd be much happier with that than hero. That
Mm,
it just messes with my brain in a completely different way.
really?
I'm
Mhm.
not so sure that. I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not gonna say don't do it, but I don't know. The fact that it isn't up to me doesn't change the fact that it feels weird.
Mm. Yeah, maybe because you're in your picture frame, you don't see yourself that way, but others do. I could see you as a hero. You know?
Well, when my first book came out, the only thing that got me emotional about it, because making book sales is amazing, but it is still
Yeah,
a lot of work to do it. So my brain was
it
like,
is.
it's worth it. It's not like, oh my god, I'm selling millions. This is fantastic. Like
Mhm,
it was worth the work. Is where I'm
mhm.
coming from. But getting messages from like my old school teachers and because my mum still works at a school, and she was like, oh, she's getting comments from the kids saying, oh, this is your son, isn't it? It's like, oh.
Wow.
And then you've got kids making their parents buy the book.
Wow.
Comments from my old school teachers saying the book was amazing. That's more than
Wow.
me selling 100 books,
Wow.
1,000 books, 1,000,000 books. It comes down to the right person saying, this is amazing. You've changed my entire outlook on life. I'd rather have that. Maybe
This
it
is
leads to things.
amazing.
It leads to things like, inspirational icon and hero being, because it's not about millions of people. It's about one person being impacted enough that dawns on them. Because it shouldn't dawn on them, but it does. I still don't think it should, but it's not up to me. It's up to them. It's what I can do for them that leads to that happening. And yes, of course it is. I'm not totally sure I'm going to ever get over it, but it's that big of a deal that I don't even know if I should get over it. Like, should I be okay with it? Don't know. We'll find out.
Yes, because you're leveling up. Like you're already leveled up. I think you should be okay with it. Yeah.
Well,
like, that's my answer. Because you're more leveled up than others. Like there's people who are just starting out, with their boundaries, just starting into self-development, but you're leveled up. Like you've been doing this, you have a better understanding. So yeah, they, perceive you as that,
It's interesting to have over a decade in something when you're only 30 years old. It's a very strange feeling.
Yeah, that's why I was like, how old are you? Like, when was this? So show us your book. Show us your books and tell us about your books.
Well, we've got that. I don't know if I think the camera's reversed, isn't it? So that's the first one.
We can see it. So wait, go back and like keep it in the middle so you can see. That's nice. My introvert journey to being visible. I like that. Cool. And I like the is that microphones, right? Or lighting?
It's lighting, the sort of studio lights. That book is purely experience. So years of what I've done, trying to put myself out there, challenging myself, testing myself. But I actually take people into what I'm thinking at the time. So it's not just step by step of how to do something. I described the fact that I didn't want to get off my chair the first time I spoke on stage and my name was called out. I thought my body felt glued to the seat, couldn't feel my legs. I had to go to the toilet beforehand because I had a nervous stomach. I was pacing the toilets, not wanting to leave. I talk about that side of things because no one talks about it. Everyone talks about, it's amazing, you've been on stage. It's not fantastic. It's bloody hard, is what it is.
Yeah.
Especially for someone that, I've been like hiding, essentially keeping to myself until that point. So that's what it talks about. That's what it goes into. It's not a long book either. People can read it in a weekend. And it's enough to get comments of they've got more hope for themselves because they read the book. So that's the main thing. Is I don't set a standard. I don't force people to do it. This is what it was like for me. And if you experience similar, hopefully it gives you some element of, I can keep going.
Heck yeah. I had so much anxiety. I thought I was going to throw up before I got on stage. When I went to Atlanta, it was Les Brown was virtual, and because I first spoke virtually last year in Les Brown's Power Voice Summit, if you know of Les Brown. Do you know of Les Brown? Okay, yeah. And I was gonna be sick. Like, I had such bad anxiety. Like I don't know how to explain. It's like, and then I got on the stage, I'm like, okay, I'm okay. Like, I have to start talking, but it was really bad.
Well, what was really interesting about my first time on stage was I was that scared that I can't fully remember what I said. My brain cut off halfway through. My brain was just, if you ever had a bit too much to drink and you forget the night when you wake up the next morning, it felt like that. But
don't do that, people.
While I was doing it, It
Yeah.
was like, what did I don't know. Just go with it. Just go with it. Just don't stop
I
talking.
know. I had no notes. Like you can have notes, but the whole point is to not have notes, right? It doesn't look good while you're, speaking to the people. I had no notes and I was speaking, I'm like, all right, like where was I? Like, in your brain you pause, you think like, what did I just say? Yeah, okay. It's
I
not
probably I
easy.
probably repeated myself at least two or
Yeah,
three
like
times in the entire thing.
it's not easy. You understand? Like, because you have it in your mapped out. Okay, like this is what I'm gonna say. Then we're gonna 1, 2, 3. Like, how we give speeches, like 1, 2, 3, like all the parts to hit all the quotes and everything. I'm like, okay, I didn't get to say everything. Like how you plan in your mind, it doesn't go that way, right?
No,
Yeah.
very rarely does. Because the first time on stage, I thought, just get through it. Don't have. There's no point in having notes. You're not going to remember them anyway. just go on and just do whatever it is. However it turns out is however it turns out. If it
Mm.
goes badly, you can always try again, or just decide that speaking's not for you.
Mm.
And then after the second time, it felt better because I wasn't in shock the entire time. So I felt like I could actually get the words out. Second
Wow.
time around, I actually remember what I was talking about. And
Mm.
then the third one, this is a part of what convinced me to go down the personal route and share
Mm.
my story more, was I talked about, this is weird. This is the bit that I was like, why the hell did you do that in the first place? I
Mm.
spoke about this stuff that we're talking about today, like the personal story side,
Mm.
on stage.
Wow.
And when I came off, that was the story that people were coming up to me afterwards, talking to me about it.
Look at
The other
that.
two didn't. The third one was the one where people were like, oh, I've got a friend with such and such a thing, and I completely understand what you're going through, and it's so hard and it's so difficult, and you feel like you're fighting every day. And just seeing you up there was inspiration enough for me to keep doing my thing. And I didn't get that with the other two. I didn't get that with the other two. So that convinced me that, you know, if you do it right, your story is enough. Just being yourself is enough if you know how to position it. If you know how to put yourself out there, you know how to communicate effectively enough, people will relate to it. People will attach to it and get something from it. Again, I didn't call myself any of these things. I didn't get any feedback on purpose. I wasn't doing it
Mhm.
for the feedback. I was doing it because I wanted to, because I wanted to help. Afterwards, everything started to really come off. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, because it's real. People relate to pain and struggle. They don't relate to everything being perfect. That would be boring. Yeah, it's true. And how can that help them? Like, how can our story help them? Like Les says, who are you? Who are you? What do you do? Or how can you help me? Like those three things, something along those lines. So like basically, like how can you help the other person? Like what can you do for me? That's what people really want to know. Like
Yeah.
story's great, but remember, like I don't know if you learned this in speaking, it's like people don't want to hear about you. They want to know how can you help them with what you got?
Yeah, over the years, a lot of it's like you've got to describe it as if it was through their experience. So you
Mm-hmm.
can't tell people your experience.
Mm.
You've got to tell people what it was like as
Yeah.
if it was happening to them.
I remember what it was now. It's why should I care? Like why should the
Ah, okay.
yeah, why should the
Yeah,
audience care about what you're saying? Yeah, that's what
yeah.
it is. So I think your story's incredible. Did you have a second book with you or a journal? What is that?
I do actually. The second book came out on my birthday,
Oh wow.
which was in July this year,
Mm,
and it was a bit of a weird moment because I have a bit of an inner circle, people that sort of not tell me what to do, but they go, you should probably be doing that. It was like, wouldn't it be cool if you wrote your second book in time for your birthday?
mm,
And I said, I've only got like 8 months. How am I going to write a book in time for my birthday? Are you mad? And they said, well, have you got the time to do it if like we put together the plan, like bullet point it out exactly what you're going to say and how you're going to
mm.
say it, and just go through it start to finish, and it'll take as long as it takes.
Yeah.
And it was ready early. it
Wow.
was ready it was ready early. So this one, hey, yo, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Center a little bit. Yeah, I see it now. Dear me, it's time for. Wait, hold on. Dear me, there's a better way. It's time
There you
for a
go.
self-help revolution. That
So
confused me a little bit there. I was like, wait,
yeah,
what?
with the different colours. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Now
funny.
this. So we think about the conversation that we had about, like the sort of coaching industry and
Uh-huh.
why it's not quite the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is a book detailing very similar, but about the self-help industry. So it's all about, like forcing comparisons or making people reliant on things. They become so unself-reliant,
Mm,
and they've been educated enough that they become dependent
mm,
on certain things and certain people, and they create this short-term solution, I guess, because it's like you want them to come back to buy the next thing and stuff like
mm.
that. So
Yeah.
it's forcing people to not rely on themselves and trust themselves and learn about themselves enough
Mm-hmm.
to be able to handle it. Because the thing that we forget is it's self help.
It's true.
It's not just help. You're not just going for help. You're trying to find the help within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the book's about. So the book takes things like journaling, meditating, gratitude, this story around feeling enough and that you're good enough the way you are. And I,
Mm-hmm.
I, I break down some of the issues with the certain practices that tend to be more popular.
Mm,
And I talk through people that there's a better way. That's that's my sort of argument. So things like how it doesn't matter where you start, it's about
mm-hmm.
making progress
It's
and
true.
understanding that it does. Yeah, you can start doing like a 2-minute meditation,
Mm,
and then in 2 or 3 weeks it might go to 3 minutes. That's
mm-hmm.
still better than not doing it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the argument with stuff like that. Is I talk about what issues it can create, what are some of the problems that can come up, and then I talk about how you can prevent those and how you can work around those. So that's been a bit of a strange one for me
Hmm.
because I wasn't sure how it would be received.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I wasn't sure. And I've got people saying that they've read the book and they passed it on to their friends. And
Oh,
would it be cool if like we could speak to you afterwards after we've read it, to sort of ask you questions and let you know? And they really enjoy it. They can really relate to some of what you talk about.
wow.
So it was just like, yeah, I'm happy to do it, no problem at all. And we're
Wow.
organising that for next month. So it's
Congrats.
it's been very very weird because again it's like storybook to self-help book. It's like writing a self-help book for my second book is a bit strange, but sometimes you've got to do things before you're ready,
Mm,
and this was
wow.
definitely one of those times.
Heck with it. Your whole life is strange. It's okay.
Yeah,
You're like, fuck it. My whole life is strange anyway.
yeah, I may as well just throw it all up in the air and just do it now. It doesn't
Whatever.
matter.
Like, honestly, like your story just reminds me to be more of myself. Like, as in, just keep doing what I'm doing because it's your life. Like, as in, I know you have your diagnosis on, but it's like, just we don't know when we're gonna go. Like, I don't have one, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's to be weird, to be strange because no, like it's your one life. Like you don't, I mean, from what we know, we don't get the same life again. You know what I mean? Like I won't be here like this again. You won't be here like this again. Like it's all just to work with what we got. Like, so
Yeah, I mean, but I completely agree with that, but I think a lot of people tend to live like they live forever.
yeah, people forget
Sometimes
that we die. We all die.
there's not a lot of urgency involved, is there? And I'm all for being patient sometimes, but then there's a place for like being proactive. There's a place for not hanging around as well.
Uh-huh.
You can be patient with some things,
Yeah.
but then other things, it's like this needs to happen. If you're a woman and you want kids, you've got a time limit.
Hmm.
That's just the way it is. Like it's the same thing with guys. Like if you want to do anything physical, do it before your
Hmm.
back starts to hurt. That's
Hmm.
just the way. It's just the way it is. I
We're
don't have
traveling
so long
far.
left.
Like
I don't,
traveling far, like
yeah,
to travel farthest when you're young,
yeah,
in your younger years, because then when you're older, you may not be able to travel as far. People may not be thinking about these things, but really, like, yeah, like I'm noticing, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna be 29. It's like I remember I asked an old friend of mine, he's like, yeah, you do look older. We were in college together. I'm like, you look older too. Like, damn, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, what the
yeah.
hell? Like, we don't look this, like, our faces are more mature, like, and it's interesting. It is interesting. And of Sadhguru's book Death, and he says, do you know of it?
I've heard of the book. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
not had the chance to read
I
it.
like, yeah. So it says Death, a book for all of those who shall die. Like it's kind of like sarcastic, like a book for those who shall die. And it's like it's for everybody. Like he's funny
Mhm.
like that. Like
Yeah,
because a lot of he does say a lot of people forget that they think everyone else dies, but they stop focusing on the fact that, hey, I'm gonna die too. Like, oh, my aunt died, or this. It's like it could be you next. You have to live in a way that it. I don't know. Only if I could like. I think you only learn this from those emotional impact moments and tragedies and medical conditions. And whenever something bad happens, that's when you're like, oh my God, let me straighten myself out. But it's like once you learn that value of that, it's like to not look back and like keep maintaining that. I think that's the hardest thing. Like Try Together came from something horrible. I know I told you it was inspired by my mom, but I had a horrible story happen like before that, but I decided to voice myself, right? Instead of sitting in it, being depressed, things like that. I decided to make a whole big brand out of it. It's an actual business brand.
yeah,
But I could have sat there and been like, oh, I feel sorry for myself. Da, da, da. Like, no, I didn't do that. You know what I mean? So I've been doing these videos every day for over a year.
right.
Like
Well,
it's crazy commitment. Yeah. So
yeah,
it's great.
it's something that dawned on me a while ago that it's things like what we've been through that speeds up like your timeline. We've got no sense of time until these things happen,
Mm-hmm.
and until we're made aware of it, we can't. Because we don't know how long we've got left. So it could be decades, or it could be tomorrow.
Mm.
We don't. We've got no idea. But somehow we have to make sense of it in a way that doesn't depress us every single day.
Wow.
Because if you think, I mean, like some people, because I've heard some people asked, would you want to live forever? And some people say yes, and some people say no.
No.
And a lot of the time, it's based on your current experience. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting how convenient we understand what time is when we're asked about it.
Hmm.
But then, would you want to die tomorrow? Would you want to die in 10 years from now? Neither. I would want to keep going. So it's like, how many years is it before your yes turns to a no, or your no
Mm.
turns to a yes? And that's a very complicated question because we've got literally no idea how to answer it.
It's an interesting one, and then we can wrap it up. It's an interesting one because if someone was to live forever, that can also be punishment. I think that was Dante's Inferno or something when they were like in the hell, if you remember in literature. I don't know if you
Mhm.
had that same
Yeah,
material in the UK, but the fact that, to be immortal, like, it could be a punishment because, yes, it's a big world to see and all, but like, there's going to be a point when you still have human emotions. You're going to want to go. Like, you know what I mean? I just feel from my perspective, you're going to get tired of, you've already done everything, if you're immortal, so it's like, but then there's no next step. We all have to go to the next step, I believe. Like, like your journey here, then, okay, I don't know what's next, so yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely a strange one because I would. I guess it would depend because living forever means eventually I would do everything. I
Yeah.
would
You
go
live forever. You
everywhere.
never die. That becomes like a taunt, like a hell in itself. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hit people
Yeah.
in, I guess, a helpful way. It can be
Yeah.
very easy to be depressed by it all. That's why it's easier for our brains to just forget about it. That's what we all do.
Yes.
We all forget about the concept of time because it makes living it a hell of a lot easier.
Yes. Because if we consciously did, then yes, we would be in panic mode. That's how our brain works. It was so great to have you on here today. This is a great conversation.
I've enjoyed it. It's been amazing. Very deep in places. You ask really good questions. So, yeah, I've
I'm
really
a
enjoyed it.
genius. So I like how you kept calling me Chai. My name is Pertiba, but it's all right. I thought it was.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew that Chai Together is my brand.
I don't know why I thought that. I suppose that's the same with
It's
people calling
but
me
it's
by
easy to
Brian.
say.
So
But it's easy to say than Pertiba, I guess. It's so funny. But you knew that wasn't my name. You were just. I think you just needed something to like say to call me out on, Chai. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm sure there's someone out there named Chai though in the world.
I'm sure there is. Yeah, there must be.
Yeah. So thank you so much. You have a great day, right? Or night in the UK? I don't
It's mid-afternoon now, so we're almost into the evening. So I will enjoy the rest of my evening, and
know.
I hope you do as well.
Wait, yes, before you go, let people know how they can reach you and what you have coming up and things. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, the best place to find me is on social media. So if you're on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, they're my main three platforms right now. It's the Michael Bryan, but I'm on TikTok, I'm on Clubhouse,
Wow.
trying out LinkedIn. So I'm almost everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And my podcast is the Michael Bryan Show, which you can find anywhere where you can listen to
Yay.
podcasts. That's where the show is. And I also have the Facebook group, which we mentioned before, which is if you want to come and hang out with me, ask me some questions when I do. Because I recently did a live call-in episode where people that are listening in can come on and ask me some questions, and it goes out on the show. So I'm having a bit of a play around with the format is what I'm trying to do. So if you want to get
I like
involved
that.
into my universe, then that's the best place to do it.
I like that. If you want to get involved into my universe. I thought you were going to say university, like you have a program.
No,
That's so
no.
funny. Thank you for those tuning in. And this was truly great. So I wish you a great day. Yeah. Thank you.
You too. Thanks for having me on.